Hey, it's Miranda. The topic I chose for my PowerPoint today is perception. And perception can be defined as a way of regarding, understanding, or interpreting something, or a mental impression. For the PowerPoint slide, I have a picture of two men arguing over a number. Is it a 6 or is it a 9? Neither are necessarily wrong. It's their perception. It's what they see. So technically, it's both. The perception process can be broken down into 3 steps. First, there's selection, or determining which data we will attend to. This can be broken down into intensity, like if something is really loud, or big, or bright, it'll stand out to us and grab our attention. Or if something's really repetitive, like the sound of a dripping faucet, or the clicking of, like, say, your refrigerator. Another thing that'll grab our attention for selection is contrast or change. Unchanging people or things are less noticeable, but if you see movement, we're more attracted to it. Next would be organization. Organization, or arranging it in some meaningful way, like we categorize by physical appearance or roles like mother, daughter, spouse, interaction based. Was that person friendly? Were they sarcastic? There's also psychological things, like they were confident, they were insecure, they were neurotic, things like that. There's also how we interpret it, attaching meaning to the data, like based on our past experiences or new situations or the opinions of others, just things like that. So in our next slide, we have a couple of influences. Okay, there are physiological influences like the senses, age, health and fatigue, biological cycles, hunger, and neurobehavioral challenges. The senses could be like if music's too loud, you want it to be turned down, but someone else could be like, well, if I turn it down, then I can't hear it. Age is also a factor. Depending on what age we are in our life, like what stage we are, we interpret things differently. Like as a kid, we like certain cartoons, but if we go back and watch them now, we're like, why did I ever like that? Health and fatigue is also a big factor. Like if you ever feel sick when you go to do something, you don't have a good time, but other people around you that might feel good, that was the best day of their lives. Also things like biological cycles, like if you're a night person or a morning person. Like people that are night owls, you don't really want to talk to them like about really prickly topics in the morning because they're not going to be very nice about it. Hunger can also be a big factor. I know when I get hangry, it's very obvious. So let's see. And there's also neurobehavioral challenges, like people with ADHD. They react differently, and they get distracted by tasks really easily. There's just things like that. There's also psychological influences, like your mood. If you're happy, you'll have a better day. If you're anxious, you're just going to stress yourself out more. Also things like self-concept, which is another psychological factor that influences our perception. One study demonstrated that self-concept was the most important factor in perceiving teasing as friendly or hostile. So, and also there's another example of children who have a low opinion of themselves. They will perceive themselves to be victims of bullying. So it's all about how you perceive yourself is how you're going to perceive how the world perceives you. Social influences are also a big factor, like sex and gender roles. Sex is like your biological characters. Gender is social and psychological dimensions of masculine and feminine behavior. Gender can sometimes influence your perception of activities you go to, like Women were found to be more perceptive to facial cues and nonverbal cues than men, things like that. There's social influences also in our occupational roles, like if you think more masculine roles should go towards men, like construction or being a doctor, and more feminine roles should go to women, like being nurses or caretakers. Another thing is relational roles. How you perceive yourself as a parent, or I'm a daughter, I am a mother, I am a son. There are also cultural influences, like where you grew up. If you're from, say, America, we get married in white wedding dresses traditionally, like in Eastern, or I guess like Christian first world countries, but in like India and stuff, they get married in red dresses. Um, Also, it can be like your country. You can be divided in your state, your county, your city. Different accents, like people from the same countries, depending on what region you're from, they still have different accents and stuff. So that's also how people can be characterized. And you also have different perceptions on how you live. From where you live, someone growing up in the city is going to have a different life than someone growing up in, say, in the middle of nowhere, like the country, the boonies, you know? Another thing is snap judgments, like stereotyping. Say you see like a man covered in tattoos. Oh, well, he must have been in prison, or he never can lay down a job. But someone who's dressed up nicely, like a suit and tie, you think, oh, they have their life really together. But that's not always the case. That's just stereotyping.